Rochester, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. Welcome into the Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia, where the voice of the Rochester fan is heard. Pull up a stool and join us at 866-4326. This is WGR Rochester, and the Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia is on now.
2 hours of sports talk excellence as we come in on a Friday afternoon, very hot, ready to go for you here in downtown Rochester, the High Falls Studios. My name is Gene Battaglia. Please join us at 866-4326, 866-4326. We're on X, our handle at WGR Rochester. We are on YouTube. We are on Twitch. Of course, we're always live on the Odyssey app. Many, many different ways you can get our program, as it is always a great time of year. Like this time next week, we're just going to be unbelievably just locked into college basketball. But just as of yesterday when we were hitting on the air, like, wait a second, Miami, Ohio is in trouble here. They go down. We'll wait till Sunday to see if they get in or not. I think the 8-10, I think it's fair to say, is a one-bid conference. Could we have another situation like this? Because right now, still a lot of time left, 14 minutes remaining. But the top seed St. Louis, 27-4 on the season, they're down by 7 to GW. So GW, the 9 seed in the quarterfinal, leading the Billikens or the Bellicans? The Billikens. Billikens, yes. It's just paving the way for your Bonnies, too.
Well, that's where I'm going, because if the Bonnies get in, it's a two-bid league, because VCU's probably going to get in still. Even
you think so? All right.
St. Louis might need to win despite being the 1 seed. VCU's probably in unless they lose to somebody really bad. But the only team really bad left is St. Bonaventure.
VCU or Miami of Ohio.
That might be
a
Dayton matchup.
Yeah. That would be great. And all this is exactly what CBS wants on Sunday. Because to me, I'm not willing to give up my Sunday evening just to sit down. And if your school is in it, that's what you're tuning in for, right? But there's no Syracuse, right? So are we really going to be sitting down and we're all anxious? If that's our producer Tim Schneider wearing his Bonnie gear. If somehow the Bonnies navigate their way to an unlikely 8-10 tournament championship, he'll be watching. But great show we have lined up today, as we will talk some Syracuse athletics, Syracuse Orange basketball, because I would say this: when has there been a time in Syracuse athletics there has been this much change? You could say the Boeheim moving on, for sure, that was big. But you layer in an AD change and you had a chancellor change. Like, we'll look back here, 5 years from now. Did they get all this right? And still, like, one big piece has to be who's going to be the next head coach. Just Adrian Autry is just this week on Wednesday. Let go. We'll talk to Mike Waters, one of the best on the beat, Syracuse Post-Standard. He joins us at about 2:25 today. So if you're an Orange fan, make sure you stick around, because we will be talking, and we'll get Mike Waters' thoughts on the new AD, Brian Blair, coming in, as well as who could be that guy. Could it actually be Jerry McNamara? I mean, they went outside the family for the chancellor, and there aren't any roots for this new AD, Brian Blair. So do they go outside the family, or are they going really inside the family? That would be the move that would excite everybody. And when you're watching the NCAA tournament, I hope they put Siena on at a friendly time for all of us to kind of watch. Maybe that ends up being a playing game in Dayton. But we'll talk to Mike Waters, Syracuse Post-Standard, in the 2 o'clock hour. A great timing to have Andy Young from Spectrum on. We tried to line it up yesterday, said let's do it today. And what do you know? We had a move last night that are like, whoa, okay, this again didn't have on my bingo card, but the Bills maybe have their safety to pair along aside Cole Bishop and C.J. Gardner-Johnson. We'll talk to Andy Young from Spectrum. That is coming up at the bottom of this hour. As always, please join us. The show is better with you, talking sports here in the Flower City. Our phone number, 866-4326. That is the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line. Award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub, 135 West Commercial Street, East Rochester, goodsmokebbq.com. Tim will also have his terrible take of today. That'll be coming up a little later this hour. The C.J. Gardner-Johnson story, that probably broke maybe while you're having dinner or whatever it was, early evening, you're out and about, you look at your phone like, wait, huh? What? C.J. Gardner-Johnson, really? And, my wife, dubbed the executive producer, Julie says, who did he play for last year? And then you have to go through the exercise like, okay, because sometimes your years get mixed up. Where was he? Here was C.J. Gardner-Johnson, his career, right? Drafted by the Saints, stayed there 3 years, goes to Philadelphia, and participates in the Super Bowl. And then, okay, he goes to the Lions the following year, back to the Eagles, and he's on that defense as a starter. They beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And then, okay, I'm going to go to Houston, and he doesn't stay there. Ends up with the Ravens on the practice squad for barely 2 weeks. And then it's with the Bears. Has 2 sacks in a game, actually, against the Giants and does some things. Concussion, he can't be in the postseason. So this is somebody that, what is the reason here? Like, again, Eagles, Lions, Eagles, 3 teams last year. And so it'll be a 5th consecutive season where he's starting with another team. Can't say a new team because there's 2 stints in there with the Eagles, but he's somebody, and listening today to our friend Carl Jones on Jeremy and Joe, and Carl just kind of laid it out because Carl actually played against C.J. Gardner-Johnson in high school. Different state, but he came up to Ohio, his team, and C.J. Gardner-Johnson just runs his mouth. He's one of these guys that yak, and just not on the field, like in the locker room. And maybe you play with somebody like that at a certain level. Maybe you work with somebody like that. And eventually, yeah, maybe it's time to kind of move on. And I do believe that this is a signing never happened with Sean McDermott as the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. Some may dispute that. I believe that McDermott is somebody that didn't like to be challenged. He's got a lot on his plate. And when it comes to managing different ego types, this isn't something he wanted in his locker room. And the Bills did a good job from the get-go of making sure that their locker room was diverse. Not just, with different backgrounds, but different political beliefs, whatever it would be. Let's just get all this out in the open and make sure that, come game day, we're just all one family. And McDermott would always have the exercise, too, with the newcomers, get up in front of the team while the team is at Fisher, and here's your presentation, tell us your story. And that's how you get one guy to care about another guy in the locker room. One way you can do it. But for whatever reason, we never really had somebody like this. And if you want to get a little nastier, I welcome this. And by the way, if it doesn't work, it's a 1-year deal. That's it. 1 year. So we'll get the thoughts here of our buddy, Andy Young, who will join us. 866-4326. First time she found us here in the new slot. Linda from Webster.
Hi, Gino. Hi, Timmy. Hello. I was just calling in to say I'm hearing you guys, and I found you guys, and I was wondering if you moved the pool table into the sports bar yet.
No, it's still a mess in here.
Okay. So just departing from the Bills for just a second,
Sure.
Isn't it nice to be able to talk about the Sabres? I remember listening to WGR in the morning, and the big topic of conversation was what kind of hot dog are they going to serve because of the opponent coming in. That was the big conversation, and now we're talking about playoffs. Playoffs is crazy. So I guess, and maybe you have mentioned this before, Gino and Timmy, but what makes this team so different from the previous 12 however years we've been watching this franchise? I'm still pinching myself, really, and I'm very happy, and I'm sure there's lots of hockey fans that are just been waiting for this day. So anyway, I just wanted to call in and say hi, and just listen to what you have to say.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Linda. And thank you for finding us, and tell a friend. Linda was always somebody that would come out when we were broadcasting out and about and say hello. And she's been with us since day one. I was going to get to the Sabres, but we will, we'll certainly talk some Sabres a little bit here with Andy Young in a little bit. What changed for this team? I think it's just a great story where all of a sudden just kind of clicked for everybody. It's like you knew the talent. You spent all these high draft picks, and it never kind of worked. And what was it? Well, finally, it just kind of started to work. And that's why this is such a fun story. And does it end ultimately in a Stanley Cup championship? Let's not get crazy. Okay, I think the Stanley Cup playoffs are a process that it's not impossible, mind you, but I would be myself satisfied if they got by the first round, and then, boy, if they knocked out Tampa and made it to the conference final, assuming that's the way it would line up. Thank you, Linda. 866-4326. Back to football, as talking about C.J. Gardner-Johnson. It's not a long-term thing. 1 year, $6 million. It's a thing, too, that, hey, if he comes in and we can't deal with this guy, bye. So, and that's what the Texans did last year. Why? I don't know. We'd have to call somebody down in Houston to get the skinny on that. But what it kind of brings into focus is this. There are going to be jobs available on this team. There really are. Like, the backups or the secondary, who are they going to be? No, they need safeties. They need corners. They need depth. With a capital D. Back, spell it all out in caps. D-E-P-T-H, depth. So here is where I would kind of say I would expect the Buffalo Bills to do when it comes to the draft. I'm going to give you what I would like the Buffalo Bills to do and what I actually think they will do. What I would like the Buffalo Bills to do is to draft a guy from the 5'8" with great hands and elusiveness. Elusiveness. Yeah, I can't say it, but he can do it. Oh, Casey Concepcion, come back to Western New York. That's what I would love. And that would be a great pick, would it not? You've got C.J. Moore. You've got a number one in development and what he could bring you. And you've got Khalil Shakir. And everybody else see what you can do here. That's what I would like them to do. Here's what I think they will do, or perhaps they should do. And again, like and should, not the same thing. That's trade down. Trade down. You have this cap issue. You have dead cap next year. Where it would be nice, maybe, hey, let's go get that receiver really, really, really want and trade up. At 26, there will be somebody quality you could take for sure. But you could move down a few slots and pick up, say, an extra fourth, fifth, dare I say third, depending on how far you want to go down. I'm okay with that. I like first-rounders because ultimately, if I'm building a team, I like that option of having the fifth-year option. Not having to deal with free agency. This time next year, we're not talking about Dalton Kincaid free agent, and the Bills have yet, this is not the window to do this, but at some point coming up before the start of the season, there will be hey, are we picking up the fifth-year option for Dalton Kincaid? That's where we are. Time flies, doesn't it? It really does. Yes, absolutely. You're picking up the fifth year on Dalton Kincaid, even though, hey, you want a little bit more, but the value of that contract, yeah, take it for one more year, what it's worth. So that's what I would like to see the Buffalo Bills kind of do, as they should. But that's bringing it back to C.J. Gardner-Johnson. You want to draft and develop a safety. And should you do that with your first-round pick? Probably not. They could say all they want, best player on the board, and maybe that's what it is, but that to me is not at the top of the list. Wide receiver, pass rusher, linebacker. Oh, that's another position. I'm like, what's going on here? So there are a lot of jobs, and I think we talk about the bridge quarterback. I don't know. C.J. Gardner-Johnson is kind of a bridge back there. He's going to bring a different attitude. You would hope he could make some plays. We'll get the thoughts of Andy Young from Spectrum joining us here in a little bit. Also, Brian Thomas Jr., that's someone who has been rumored to be available. And we kind of have these thoughts, right? Wide receiver, Jacksonville. Can you get him on the cheap? Could you get him for, say, next year's second-round pick? That would be good, right? Except if you're listening to the GM in Jacksonville, he's not going to go anywhere. James Gladstone, quote, "We haven't gotten an offer for him, and there hasn't been a lot of dialogue on that front." Gladstone going on to say the reports were the Jags were shopping Brian Thomas Jr. were fraudulent. I would say this. We used to call draft season the season of lying because once we get to the draft and every prospect is great and you're not talking about players you might like or tons and tons of lies out there. And I don't think I would want to work in the business of being a draft analyst because every agent, you really have to get your own information and you really have to have multiple sources to believe a thing because I believe there's so many lies out there. So many. To the point where the whole industry was poisoned last year, where you thought the guy was going to go number 2, but it ends up that Shedeur Sanders goes in the 5th round. Lies. Total lies. They'll just tell you what you want to hear. Yep, we love him. Yeah, we've seen him. Yeah. No, you don't. You can take him in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. Well, the point is about Brian Thomas Jr. If the GM about Jacksonville says he's not shopping him, those are fraudulent, he's listening. He's lying. So anything short of the GM saying he is on this roster next year, period, well, then I think there's a chance. And I would not deter me if I'm Brandon Beane just to see if you can't swing for that. And would you give up a little bit of draft capital for next year? For sure. St. Louis has erased a double-digit deficit, by the way. They're now leading GW 70-67. We'll keep you updated on that. The A10 tournament. We'll be talking basketball next hour with Mike Waters, Syracuse Post-Standard, about the new AD in Syracuse and who made me the new head coach and what is it actually going to take for Syracuse not to get back to glory, just get back to the tournament. 5 years. 5 years. Sabres last night started off well, and I'm just wondering if they took things a little bit too much to heart, or this was just you can't win them all, and it's hockey. You throw it into that category. A 2-1 loss late to Washington in a game that, okay, it's 1-1 late, and you're thinking you're at least going to get a point out of this, and you don't. So there's a good lesson for the Sabres out of that, for sure. A comical sequence, if you saw this in the first period, where clearly the penalty killers for Washington, they needed a change. They couldn't get off the ice. The Sabres are holding it in the zone. And it's kind of coincidental that in a night where Alex Ovechkin, who made a career living from the left circle, that is his office. Ovechkin, boom, boom, boom. How many times did you see that over the years? Well, there's somebody in the league better than him at this stage right now. That's Tage Thompson. Tage Thompson, you saw it in the Olympics. That's where he likes to set up, the left circle, right? And there he is on the power play. Okay, one-timer, bam, nope, 2 ice, 3 times, 4 times. He got 5 one-timers off, and the Sabres couldn't score. And all Thompson could do was just kind of skate back to the bench and just have a smile on his face, like, what the hell? And, he's saying what the hell. It's just like, you wonder, like, all right, are you thinking at that point, what else can I do here? Washington comes in, and they get 2 points. And when we look back at that game, we're like, okay, is that going to be a game that's going to prevent the Sabres, say, from having home ice in the second round as opposed to the first? Sabres tomorrow will be hosting Toronto. And I would just ask this question, if you're going to that game, do we get it back to 50-50? Talking to Dan Lorian, one of our producers, he thinks it will be more Sabre fans than Leaf fans. I refuse to go to those games, by the way. One time I had an opportunity. I can't. I would be miserable. It'd be like going on that's worse than going on a road. At least when you go on the road as an opposing fan, you know what you're in for. Like, I don't want people coming in my house and doing that. But that happens to a certain degree with every fan base. I was surprised how much teal I saw out at KeyBank on Tuesday night. But there are fans from Southern Ontario that are not Sabre fans. They're just hockey fans. And Celebrini is one of those guys like, okay, he's really, really good. And if the NHL knew how to market, more people in North America would know the name Macklin Celebrini. And he's a reason to believe if you are a fan of the San Jose Sharks. And I think, okay, what percentage were really like, hey, I'm a Sharks fan, or just I like hockey and I'm going to wear this sweater. I'm not a Sabre fan, but I'm here to support because, yeah, the vast majority of jerseys I saw Tuesday night were Celebrini jerseys. Let's get to Andy Young from Spectrum. He will join us. We'll talk some Buffalo Bills football. You are always welcome to join us at 866-4326. Gene Battaglia here on WGR Rochester.
Update.
Hockey night tonight here in the Flower City as the Amerks looking to break a 9-game losing streak. The Toronto Marlies, the opponent, head coach Mike Leone setting this up.
They're well coached. Grudes does a really good job. They defend really well. They protect the middle of the ice really well. And then, they got a lot of dangerous players, veteran players in this league that have played a long time that know how to play in this league. They do a really good job of just having numbers back, not giving anything off the rush.
Don Stevens, Andrew Mossbrooks will have your call tonight beginning at 7 here on WGR Rochester. The Sabres back in action tomorrow night, coming off a loss last night to Washington. The Leafs, the opponent. Randy Mearns makes his debut as Nighthawks head coach. Rochester Sunday playing at Las Vegas. Sports brought to you by GetMyPerks.com, where today get a $50 certificate for half price to Lasertron in Henrietta. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, WGR Rochester.
The best local sports talk in the Flower City. The Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR. Rochester.
Round one of free agency winding down here as there are still some moves coming in, as we learned last night. Did the Buffalo Bills get themselves a starter at safety? Happy to be joined by Andy Young, covering the Buffalo Bills, covering Buffalo sports for Spectrum. And Andy, your thoughts on C.J. Gardner-Johnson? I just picture this as a guy that maybe wouldn't have come in under the previous regime. Andy, how are you this afternoon?
I'm great, Gene. Yeah, this is an interesting move for the Bills, and it maybe signals a little bit of a shift in philosophy of the types of personalities that come into this building. C.J. Gardner-Johnson has been a really productive, good player. He's been a winner. He's been a playmaker across the league. But for some reason or other, he's been on 8 different teams. He's bounced around. Nobody keeps him around for very long. What is the reason for that? Not necessarily sure, but it is proven that he's a good player, that he's a bombastic character in some degree, good in the community. He's been all over the place on the field. He plays multiple positions. He plays nickel, he plays deep safety, he plays in the box, closer to the line of scrimmage, and that really fits the kind of versatility that I think Jim Leonhard wants to employ in his defensive backfield. So I really like this move.
Yeah.
Give it a shot, see what happens with him.
Yeah, and again, if it's bad, it's a 1-year deal, Andy. So I guess it kind of brings into focus, too, like, all right, he's here for 1 year, and if he really does a great job, he can go somewhere else next year, or we'll have to pay him a little bit more. I look at what's behind not just him, but behind at the corner position. You have to remember, hey, Tre'Davious White isn't even signed by anybody yet. The depth that is needed right now, how much more do you expect to happen here in terms of free agency on the defensive side of the ball here for Buffalo?
Yeah, I think they're going to maybe bargain shop a little bit here as they kind of look at filling out positions, adding some depth. You mentioned cornerback. Who is behind Max Harrison and Christian Benford? Do they bring back Trey White? Do they want to look at a linebacker, right? They're going to make some changes to that position. Do they want to look at trying to get more depth on the edge? How about a nose tackle? I think there's a whole host of things on the defensive side of the ball that they can still do. Now, it just depends on the money, right? And, it kind of look like some of the positions are drying up. But Brandon Beane, I think, has done a good job over the last several years of grabbing guys in that next wave of free agency, even grabbing guys in June and heading towards camp. You think about a Shaq Thompson type of guy that came on and ended up being the best linebacker for the Bills last year. So I think there's still moves to be made across the board. I just don't know how big of a splash they'll be.
Yeah, and I guess we all look, most of us, fans, media, you need that big defensive guy you've got a game plan around, a real game wrecker. Andy, there's so few of them. Like, you want to, pine for a Micah Parsons or Myles Garrett. Cleveland making Myles Garrett putting that into context here as far as the defensive end, Bradley Chubb being signed. If you take a half step back, what are your thoughts here on the Bills bringing in a defensive end that came in, drafted ahead of Josh Allen, but to this point hasn't produced anywhere near that level?
I think there's some fatigue from Bills fans because this feels like another move where it's maybe a half measure of getting that edge guy. Like Von Miller, obviously, was a big-ticket item. He wasn't hurt at the time, but was at the back half of his career. And then you go with Joey Bosa, who, started out decent last season, then kind of tailed off towards the end of last year. Maybe there wasn't as much left in the tank there. And then Bradley Chubb, who's a little bit younger, not too much younger, has been productive, but he's also dealt with injuries himself. But I think he fits perfectly in the mold, if he's healthy, of what they want from a Jim Leonard outside rush linebacker in this defense. And if he's in good shape and he's healthy and he's good to go, he's been a productive player. The health has always been a question. It was kind of the same thing we said last year with Joey Bosa. So kind of an up in the air move, but like if you want Max Crosby or somebody like that, Micah Parsons, you saw what the haul of trades are. So that's why it's so important to hit on those kind of guys in the draft, because they so rarely become available.
Yeah, when we look at the draft here, Andy, just sticking with the defense, they're going to need to draft some younger guys, maybe develop them. But as far as pass rusher at 26, or maybe up or down just a little bit, is that the number 2 need? Is it the number 1 need? Is it? And you mentioned fatigue there, because if the Bills draft another pass rusher, we're all going to be like, oh, here we go again. We have other needs on this team.
Right. Going into this, I thought safety was maybe the number 1 need there to play next to Cole Bishop, because they just didn't have a clear starter there at all. Now I think it could be a young edge. Like I like a young guy like Cassius Howell out of Texas A&M, and this is supposed to be a pretty good edge depth class in the draft this year. So I think that certainly could be a position they go with. And then, you pair that with a Bradley Chubb. You see where you want to end up playing Rousseau. Does he play defensive end, or does he slide out to outside linebacker? I don't think he's a perfect fit for either of those roles in this defense, but Rousseau is a good player. Like they'll figure out something to do with him. But I think, hit on those positions that the salaries are skyrocketing. Edge, wide receiver, those types of positions are where you need to go early in the draft, and you need to hit on them.
Yeah, sticking with the defense before we ask questions about the offense here, because I'm wondering with this new alignment here, how does Ed Oliver fit as a defensive end? Is this a miscast, or is it a Tage Thompson situation where like, wait a second, he's at a new position, look at him tearing it up? Your thoughts on Ed Oliver going here into 2026?
Well, what are Ed Oliver's best assets? It's getting up the field with explosiveness and quickness, and I think that can play at that spot. He's not quite as big as some of those classic, maybe not as long as some of those classic 3-4 defensive ends that you've seen, but I think he's a versatile piece. Like they can move him around to a 3 technique, a 5 technique, which is more towards the outside, pair him with Bradley Chubb over there. Think about those 2 guys rushing on the outside next to each other if Chubb's in good shape and good to go. That's pretty good, right? So I think, it's not a perfect fit, but I mean, he is a good player, and if he's healthy, they're going to want to get him back and using him in a variety of ways. And I think he can play that, 4-eye, 5 defensive end technique if necessary in this defense.
Andy Young from Spectrum is our guest here in the Sports Bar, WGR Rochester. Going over to the offensive side of the ball, and we're thinking about all the different options for the Buffalo Bills at wide receiver, and we're just looking strictly at free agents, and hey, maybe Mike Evans, would the Bills spend for Alec Pierce? I don't think any of us landed on trade for DJ Moore, but now that I think the consensus here is this, Andy. He's a good player, could actually be a number 1 for Buffalo, but the price seems a little steep with just what you had to pay in terms of the salary cap, and giving up that second-round pick, I think, stings a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest problem that people have had with this deal. If you told people we traded for DJ Moore for a 4th-round pick and you had to give up another pick or something, or even a player, right, you'd have said, all in, great, sure. 2nd-round pick, really valuable, especially where the Bills pick in the draft. Typically, those 2nd-round picks matter a lot because those 1st-round picks are, in essence, 2 second-round picks for those guys. So I like DJ Moore as a player a lot. I think he instantly becomes Buffalo's number 1 outside receiver. Is he the elite of the elite? No, absolutely not. He's not in the class of Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, all those kinds of guys. But I think he can do a lot of the things that the Bills have been missing, which is get open and win on all 3 levels of the field. And that's what they need, right? They need a guy who can get open on intermediate and deep in cuts. The things that they missed with Stephon Diggs. I wouldn't even put him in the class of Diggs in his prime, but he is still a very good, productive player. And I think they're going to be able to get some use out of DJ Moore. Cost, yes, that is a little bit prohibitive, but I guess that's the price of doing business when you miss on a Keon Coleman, right? If that was you turned into be DJ Moore, you'd be happy as heck with that pick, and that just hasn't materialized. So you got to go and get him other ways.
Yeah, if I'm looking at the receiving core entering, say, camp at Fisher this year, 4, 5, 6 seem okay. These would be the guys. Palmer is here for nothing else, the contract. Coleman is here for now. We're still throwing in McCole Hardman. He's here.
I almost forgot about him the other day. Somebody mentioned him. I was like, oh, yeah, McCole Hardman.
Yeah, like he was wearing number 1. I don't even know if he makes a spot on the team, but Shakir's in the top 3. DJ Moore. All right, so this brings us to the question: if you need another pacer, Andy, do you go back to free agency? Is there anybody else in a trade, or are you focused on the draft? Now, I'm planting my flag firmly. I am biased here. The guy I want is from the 585. Yes, Casey Concepcion, come on home. Yes, Rochester loves you, and Brandon Bean, please do the right thing. But seriously, Andy, your thoughts on how the Bills go about getting another receiver that Josh Allen could really use?
I don't know if I can even speak now. You took my breath away with that song cut there. I loved it, Gene. Nicely done. Nicely done. Yeah, like if you followed along with me, I'm go receiver early in drafts and keep hammering away at that. So I love Casey Concepcion. I think he could be a great player. I love that his father was from Rochester and he was born in Rochester, and dad played a season at UB and grew up a Bills fan. That would be an incredible story, and I think he's a really good player. I've seen him rising up the board. So, if all things are equal and you don't have a defensive end you like, or you don't have a linebacker that you really like there, and Casey Concepcion's on the board at 26, sure. There are other guys that will be available in those first couple of days. Do the Bills maybe trade back into the second round out of the first, and then you got an opportunity to load up on depth as far as getting another second-round pick back, and you can take a receiver there. I wouldn't rule it out that they go. I think about they pick up Elijah Moore a little bit later on the second part of free agency last year. So I think, guys like Christian Kirk are still out there, who's, I believe, buddy with Josh Allen. That never hurts in this process, as we've come to learn. If number 17 likes you, you're there. So I think there's still more depth they could possibly add at wide receiver. I think they should. I think they need to keep cracking at it in the draft, too, in those first 2 days. I think that's really important because we see the cost of that position continuing to skyrocket. You don't want to have to go out and make trades for DJ Moores all the time.
Speaking of buddy, the big question, Andy, did you have a slice of the pizza that Connor McGovern brought in? Was it purchased, or did he actually make that?
So he purchased that from a pizzeria in East Aurora that's pretty good. It's like a brick oven style pizza. It's really good. And he did not. I had that question a lot when I posted that video. They're like, oh, he made the pizzas for you. How cool. He does make pizzas. These were purchased pizzas. I did have a slice of the mushroom pizza. It was very good.
That was the move none of us expected. Okay, who will be the starting center for the Bills next year? Well, I could see Alec Anderson. Hey, we've still got Cedric Van Granger. Andy, just a simple question. Well, what happened? How did that all come about?
It's really interesting because Tim Graham had that article in The Athletic last week about Connor McGovern saying he hadn't heard from the Bills, and he figured his time with the Bills was over. And then a couple of days later, we find out that they've come to an agreement. I think he said Josh Allen called him up on Thursday last week and said, hey, let's get this done. I want you back. And then McGovern said Josh called Bean, and they talked too. So Josh Allen definitely has direct impact on some of these decisions, and Allen clearly wanted McGovern back. They reached a number where his family was comfortable. I love that McGovern said, look, I might have passed up a couple of $1 million per season on the free agent market, but what is a couple of $1 million when you're making $13 a year? That's plenty of money for me and my wife and my kids to live, and I wanted to be where I was happy. So that was a cool thing for him to say.
Yeah, I mean, maybe along those same lines. I don't know exactly the numbers for Dawson Knox, but I'm happy that they figured out a way because certainly as a tight end too, it's not a bad guy to have around.
Yeah, I mean he is a good tight end. Was he probably worth a cap hit of like $17 million? No. So we all kind of knew the Bills aren't probably, given their cap constraints, going to bring him back at that number. I know that they love him. He is beloved by that locker room. I know that Brandon Bean loves him a lot. Joe Brady does. Of course, Josh Allen does. He does great work in the community. He works with Punt, Pediatric Cancer Collaborative out here in Western New York, and does great work there. But, business is business. And at the end of the day, you can't have a guy that's, producing the kind of numbers he does to be making that much. He's a very valuable piece on the team, versatile, especially given Dalton Kincaid's injury history. You love to have a guy that, all right, Dawson Knox is there, and then we have Jackson Hawes behind that. We'll be okay at tight end if Dalton Kincaid is hurt. So good move for both sides to stick around. Dawson Knox, married to a woman from Buffalo, so I'm pretty sure he wanted to stick around too, and obviously the two sides were able to make that work.
Hey, you marry the girl from Rochester, you're not leaving Rochester. We can attest to that.
Right.
So that's the way. We're talking to Andy Young from Spectrum, talking some Buffalo Bills, and there were some players that left, some good players, right? David Edwards going to the Saints, not a surprise, but the Bills have an answer. I'm happy for Cam Lewis. This will be the first time he's not playing in a Bulls or Bills uniform. He goes to Chicago. I think the one that stings, though, and am I overreacting saying, wow, that didn't see that coming, Reggie Gilliam is a Patriot. I would have said anywhere but there, Andy.
Right. Of course he goes to the Patriots, right? Matt Collins goes to the Patriots. Other guys, years and years ago, Antoine Smith, different types, had gone to the Patriots and kind of left that sting in the Bills fans' mouth. Yeah, I think that does hurt a little bit, right? Like, Gilliam was a versatile player. He was becoming one of the better blocking fullbacks in the NFL, obviously helped James Cook to the NFL rushing title, stalwart on special teams. Eventually it becomes, though, hey, Patriots could offer him a multi-year contract and some more money than the Bills were able or willing to pay, and so you move on. And it makes me wonder a little bit, though, if the Bills are willing to let him move on, do you see a different role maybe for Jackson Hawes? Can he play some H-back and do some of the blocking things in the backfield there, as well as his inline tight end on the line of scrimmage? So I'm interested to see how that shakes out with the Bills.
Yeah, that's a good point. All these new numbers, I see Rousseau in 15. I can't get used to that. I think it's smart business by Tyler Bass to say, hey, DJ Moore, here's my number 2. Bass will wear number 16. Are we expecting a kicker battle here coming up at camp, or is the contract for Bass now just kind of assures that if he's healthy, he'll be on the team, Andy?
I think they wouldn't mind bringing in some depth competition at kicker, especially what's gone on with Bass with injuries the past couple of years. He had the inconsistencies a few years ago, had seemed to have gotten over that, and then gets hurt. Didn't really kick at all last year. Like, we never even saw him in practice hardly kicking at any point after training camp. So, given that, I don't think it's a completely prohibitive contract for them to get out if they have a kicker battle in camp and somebody else wins it. So I would think they maybe bring in another kicker at some point for some depth, and maybe, they can find the kicker of the future there. Or Bass, if he's good to go and has his golf swing going the way it should be, right, then they're okay with that.
Yeah. Andy, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the Sabres here and this this wildly entertaining season, and all of a sudden, everybody just kind of grew up here all at once. My question is, I'm trying to picture this, because if there's one sport, in my opinion, where, hey, it's played one way in the regular season, and then when you get to the postseason, whoa, that's a Stanley Cup playoffs. How do you think the Sabre team, this style of play, will translate when it comes to the playoffs? So I'm not jinxing anything. They got a 99% chance, for crying out loud here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even concerned with that anymore. Now it's, do they win the Atlantic? Do they win the entire East, right, as far as the regular season goes? Yeah. I think they're good to go for the playoffs. I think we can move towards thinking about matchups and how deep can this team go. And that was a question, your same question you just asked, that I've had all along too. Some young guys, maybe not the most physical guys in the world, but I really love the way they stood up to that physical test against Tampa Bay, and what was maybe one of the best hockey games I've ever watched, just for the pure drama and all the things that happened in the course of that game. I love that Tampa came in and was like, we're going to bully these guys, we're going to push them around, and the Sabres responded, and they didn't back down, and they fought, and that, you don't get a ton of fights in the playoffs, but it's a physical brand of hockey. It's a much tougher brand of hockey to play, and I do like the moves that Jarmo Kekalainen made. I mean, Logan Stanley and Luke Shen, and bringing these guys in, Sam Carrick, that have some grit and some sandpaper. You need that in the playoffs. Are those guys superstars? No, but when called upon, they're going to hit. They're going to back up their teammates, those sorts of things, and that's going to be really important, like you said, once you reach April and May here and see what happens in playoff hockey, because it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, the attitude or the culture of this team, and you go back to last year where I forget the opponent, but I remember the play where Thompson gets drilled and there's a bunch of players just standing around looking, oh, Well, that's too bad.
Right.
Like, okay, now go back to Tuesday night where there's a hip check where I think that should be outlawed. And, okay, it's not a penalty. That's kind of a dirty-ish play. And there's Benson. Okay, yeah, we're not going to do that here. How did we get to a spot where these guys all of a sudden are playing the sport the way that everybody here in Western New York wants their hockey team to play?
Yeah, it's really remarkable because on the surface level, it's like, okay, you fired Kevin Adams. What changed, right? I know they had a mini winning streak going into that after the firing, but before the firing, but like what actually happened here? And then I think, Lindy Ruff gets some credit for that too. I don't think he's gotten enough credit for maybe finally getting the guys to buy into what he wanted, and credit to the players too. I think at a certain point it's enough is enough. You get a little confidence, you start getting things behind you, and that kind of plays to like the mental psyche of sports. When you lose a bunch of games in a row, you kind of are, here we go again. And then finally they dug out of that, and then they go on a win streak, and they're like, all right, man, we can do this, right? We can play the right way. We can do the things Lindy wants. Firing Kevin Adams maybe wakes some guys up and says they are going to make some moves. This isn't acceptable from the top down. I think that all plays a role in what's happened here.
I am so happy that, every once in a while Buffalo gets a chance to host the NCAA tournament. Here in Rochester, we're going to get the hockey tournament. I believe it's 2028. But for basketball here, Andy, I'm just hoping that you get nice stories and nice teams coming out. I would love to see. I don't know what seedings are going to be going there, but how about Siena? Let's start there. Jerry McNamara, maybe the new head coach someday at Syracuse. Some Orange fans hoping for that, but I'm just hoping for fun stories and some real blue chip programs that up in Buffalo next week.
Yeah, that's kind of the first thing we've been talking about this week as we kind of put our plans together for coverage of the NCAA tournament at KeyBank Center is, all right, is Siena going to come over here? GMAC, is he going, right? And the talk about Syracuse. And we know that Syracuse has fans all across New York State, over here in Buffalo, Rochester, all the way across the state, and a big alumni base. So that would be a cool story if Siena comes over here and can do that. I don't know if that's going to happen. I think the last projection I saw, they were maybe going to San Diego. So who knows? But that would be a cool story. And, do they have a team that has a local connection? Does Brian Hodgson down at South Florida there, who was from Jamestown originally and coached at UB as an assistant, do they come up here? Do you have, like the blue chip programs? We had, Villanova after they won the national title was here. We've had Bob Knight in Indiana back in the day has been here. So that would be really cool to get some of those teams here. And then, are there teams that have a local connection to upstate New York as far as players go, right? That would be really cool too.
Yeah, I would highly suggest if somebody can pull that off to go out there on Thursday or Saturday for that matter. Andy, a lot happening between the Sabres, and I didn't even ask you about the Amerks. If they lose tonight, that's up to 10 here, so throwing my hands up in the air. But, Andy, tell everybody what they can expect on Spectrum and where they can follow you.
Yeah, you can follow me on social media handles at Andy Young TV, putting up a lot of videos, clips from Bill's press conferences, analysis, those sorts of things. We're diving into our prospect profile series as we get ready for the draft. So I'm, sharing that on TV and online. And then we've got the Buffalo End Zone podcast with Kevin Carroll and myself. We do that at least once a week, maybe more when big news happens. I think we did 3 of them last week as news broke, where we can kind of break down and talk long form, kind of like we do here about all the things happening.
Yeah, appreciate the great work, Andy. Let's do this again soon.
Anytime, Gene. Love doing it, man.
Thanks. Andy Young, Spectrum, with his thoughts, your reaction to that, because, we want to make sure we're talking a lot of Bills football here, 1-3 on WGR Rochester. St. Louis is going to advance, by the way. That just goes final. 88-81 over GW. So GW had a 14-point halftime lead, so maybe St. Louis and VCU both get in. St. Louis is the top seed in the A10. St. Bonaventure, by the way, is coming up next against Dayton. What a segue. Wearing his radio clothes, Tim Schneider will have his terrible take of the day. Again, I don't know what direction he's going to go in. I'll probably hate it. You will probably hate it too. My name is Gene Battaglia here on WGR Rochester.
TuneIn apps.
Spring is right around the corner, and we bet you're excited for warmer weather. But as temperatures rise, Make sure that your energy bills don't. Keep those cooling costs low with Window Nation's high-quality, energy-efficient products. Simply request a consultation where their experts will visit your home, spot problem areas, and make recommendations. Your customized windows can be installed in a day, and once completed, your home will be shielded from outside hot air while you remain cool and comfortable inside throughout the spring and summer. With Window Nation, your house won't just look great, but you also have peace of mind. All Window Nation's products are backed by a lifetime warranty. There's no better time to upgrade your home with Window Nation. In March, the more you buy, the more savings you could enjoy, up to 50% off all window styles. And be sure to ask about Window Nation's generous financing options, including $0 down and payments as little as $199 a month. Visit windownation.com for your free consultation today. That's windownation.com.
Ready, aim, go.
Rochester's home for live sports and the best sports talk anywhere. The Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia, 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR, Rochester.
St. Bonaventure, Bonnie fans can hold out hope as a 13 seed. Can they have a magical run? They're coming up here in next hour taking on Dayton. We will talk some Syracuse athletics, some Syracuse basketball. Mike Waters from the Syracuse Post-Standard, as it's been an interesting time, an interesting week here. Big changes out at Syracuse. Where do they go from here in terms of a basketball coach? That's coming up next hour. Our phone number is 866-4326 here on WGR Rochester. It is now time for our fine producer, Tim Schneider's terrible take of the day. Timmy's terrible take of the day. Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to go one direction. I think I'm going to go another because you just brought it back up again. College basketball, top of mind. Right now, this week is more fun than next week. Next week was my favorite week or day of the year, the start of the tournament. Awesome time. This week, or right now, is more fun to me, and I think it might be because of the changing landscape that we kind of touched on yesterday. Now, this is madness, not next week. Next week, the tournament begins, but it's kind of bogged down by a bunch of middling Power 5 teams. Now is where the Cinderellas come out, and St. Bonaventure being one of them. Signed me up for a magical run in Schmitz last week. Even Fordham had a chance yesterday. They're never going to make the tournament. They made the tournament when?
All right, no Fordham person ever thought they did a chance. You're absolutely, this is a clickbait take. Do you not have a bracket?
We all have a bracket.
Okay, so like how is next week not more interesting to you? Where if you want to win at your bracket, you've got to do just a smidge of homework. And again, if you listen to the Sports Bar, here's my advice, okay? And again, I am not Mr. Bracketologist. I'm not somebody who follows this half as close as you do, but I've won a few polls. You just go to KenPom. Hit the filter for defense. Look who's in defense, top 10, and then cross-reference into offense. But make sure you're going on defense because you know what doesn't have a slump? Defense. Shooting can get into a slump, not defense. So I digress, Tim. Like this is your Bonnie. If you're excited, it's a very biased take. With Bonaventure playing in, 15 minutes? You're excited.
I think that's kind of my point is like you can just go to a website. You can go to an analytics website. You can press a button, and you kind of get your results. You know what's going to happen. Right now, this week, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know the teams involved. Like, at the end of the day, they're not going to win a national title. But the fact that they have a chance to get into that tournament, to me, is more fun than, like, Miami, Ohio. If they don't get in and Auburn does, I want nothing to do with the tournament. Like, that's silly to me. A 15-15 team, get them out of here. Miami, Ohio, 31-1. Put them in, despite them losing yesterday. That gets a team like Akron or whoever it may end up being in.
See, you will be excited if they're in. Like that's where you're going to be paying attention. You and a lot of other basketball fans on Sunday. Hey, did the Red Hawks get in? That would be like the biggest kick to the you know what if they don't get in, and it's wrong. I think at minimum you put them in the playing round because that'll help your ratings on the True TV or whatever it is. I'm sorry, Tim, I didn't have you on camera.
That's
okay.
That's
my bad. There he is. Wave to the camera. Tim Schneider with his terrible take
It's a
of
wonderful
the day.
take.
Well, terrible take. We will have Mike Waters from the Syracuse Post-Standard coming up here in hour number 2. Show's better with you. Snowy day here in Rochester. Well, it's March. What do we expect? 866-4326 our number here on WGR Rochester.
WBEE HD2 and W239BF Rochester. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR Rochester. An Odyssey sports station, WGR Rochester. Sports Update.
Amherst need a win. They're on a 9-game losing streak entering tonight's game. Toronto, the opponent for Caleb Lawrence, making his Rochester home ice debut.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's nice to go somewhere that wants to, and it's just a nice fresh start for me with 2 months left in the season. Thought the first game was all right, but we'll keep going tonight. Great group. All the guys are super nice. They all talk amongst each other. There's a bunch of good conversation in the room, so it's been really fun.
Don Stevens, Andrew Mossbrooks will have your call beginning at 7 tonight here on WGR Rochester. The Sabres tomorrow taking on the Leafs. Randy Mearns making his debut as Nighthawks head coach. The Nighthawks playing at Las Vegas coming up on Sunday. Sports is brought to you by GetMyPerks.com. Today, get a $50 certificate for half price to Lasertron in Henrietta. For this and other great deals, log on to GetMyPerks.com. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, WGR Rochester.
Welcome into the Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia, where the voice of the Rochester fan is heard. Pull up a stool and join us at 866-4326. This is WGR Rochester, and the Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia is on now.
Hour number 2 as week 1 of NFL free agency is winding down here today. 3 o'clock, CJ Gardner Johnson will talk to Bills reporters on Zoom. That'll be interesting. Certainly he's somebody that I'm expecting to, just shake things up a little bit in the Bills locker room on the Bills side of the ball. I mean, it is interesting how many different teams he's been on, but I'm going to plant my flag firmly. This is it's a sign that the business as normal, business as usual for the Buffalo Bills. Like Sean McDermott never would have brought in anybody like this. That would have been vetoed by the coach, but he's no longer here. So. Let's see. And Gardner Johnson, as a 1-year deal, fine. That's great. Prove it. And then we'll deal with that next year. And then you're drafting somebody you would hope that could develop into the player that could replace him someday. That's the way I would kind of view this. Mike Waters, Syracuse Post-Standard, will join us bottom of this hour. The Bills do have some news today, but it's not anything, in terms of transactions or personnel related. It's just new numbers. And the new numbers, the Bills put this out. I don't know if they think they thought this through. New numbers, who dis? Allen, number 11. What? What, Josh Allen's not 17? No, Josh Allen's still 17. Oh, yeah, they signed Kyle Allen. We spent all of 0 seconds talking about Kyle Allen with Andy Young earlier. Oh, yeah, that's this year's backup quarterback. He's here for a second tour of duty as was Mitchell Trubisky. Will we get to a third tour of duty for Trubisky? I would bet yes on that, by the way. But Kyle Allen will wear number 11. Bradley Chubb will wear number 9. D. Alford will wear number 23. Now, Mecole Hardman will take the old number of Curtis Samuel. Mecole Hardman, where you think, where's McCole? McCole Hardman, you forget he's on the roster, by the way. He's wearing number 1 this coming year. Greg Rousseau's wearing number 15. DJ Moore takes number 2. Aha. All right, well, that was Tyler Bass's number. So the question is, did Bass just kind of give that up, or what was the price? It's weird how athletes are just so attached to their number. To me, it's just grab a new number. But, again, I didn't play at any level like this. So getting his old number is DJ Moore. Tyler Bass now will wear number 16. And Ray Davis shifts to Taron Johnson's old number. Davis will wear number 7. Okay. Incoming, old man yelling at clouds take. I like it better when you knew what numbers went to what position. I mean, it's silly that Rousseau was wearing 15 and running back 7. Defensive end wearing number 9. That went out years ago. So just gotta get used to it. Although the one thing I used to yell at the clouds, the NHL, I don't know if it's this year or next year, Tim, but when do we go back to the home team wearing white predominantly?
I don't have the answer to that, but I know that in the American Hockey League, they switch at the midway point of the season.
So I think it's next year. So whenever the CBA is up. The hot uniform talk, by the way, too. If you've seen the new uniforms for the Tennessee Titans, it was kind of leaked course, manufacturers do a poor job of this. You could search out which team is switching, but there it was. And basically, this looks like the Houston Oilers from back in the day. Like, this looks sharp. The Titans went from having one of the worst looks, not just in the NFL, but in sports. It was just a mishmash. Like, a bunch of different colors and things that didn't flow together, kind of like the Bills of the drought era with the Navy. Funny how you don't see a lot of that, do you? Do you see that even in the team sport? Will we ever have a Bills Navy throwback? I'm going to guess no.
Part of that was tough, though, because they weren't good.
Well,
like Takeo Spikes, that's all I got.
And like, you have teams like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with the creamsicles that weren't good.
Those are vintage, though.
Well, the question is, are we going to get to that vintage point? And I don't think so. There's a thing like, okay, like that color scheme for Tampa was good. This, and if you see somebody out in a Lee Evans jersey, like it's bad for anybody who played in that era because you're going to be forgotten about. Nobody's wearing Aaron Schobel going to the stadium. Like good players from that era that just never found the postseason, and nobody will wear their jersey because the jersey is so completely out of style. You're welcome to join us. Our phone number is 866-4326. You can hit us up on YouTube and Twitch. That is our number. Other things happening in the NFL where there's a running back, he was taken to the first round coming out of Clemson. Great college football player. Taken by Jacksonville. And then he reaches free agency, and now he's a New Orleans Saint. Travis Etienne, that's who I'm talking about, right? No, that isn't right. Here is Travis explaining.
So growing up, it's Travis Etienne. So it'd be like Achane, and that's how you always said Travis Etienne. But when I went to college, I kept telling them my name like every day, and like after like 4 weeks, they just couldn't get it. So I'm like, man, it's Etienne. Like how you see it is how you say it.
Okay, like this is a take you've heard from me before. Travis, it's your name. There is one thing in life that you will always own, and that's your name. And for anybody that says, you pronounce it however you like, no. You know, I call a lot of sports at college, high school. Hey, Sydney, how do you say your last name? Is it Bloomstein or Bloomstein? Either way. No, it's your name. You tell me. So Travis Etienne, Etienne, Etienne. Play this again. I want to make sure we get this right.
So growing up, it's Travis Etienne. So it'd be like Achane, and that's how you always said Travis Etienne. But when I went to college, I kept telling them my name like every day, and like after like 4 weeks, they just couldn't get it. So I'm like, man, it's Etienne. Like how you see it is how you say it.
Yeah, and then it kind of became the cool thing on Twitter. I remember the one year, like the Bills should draft. It was just the letters ETN. No, it's Etienne.
Leave it to Dabo Swinney to
right.
To
like
say somebody's name.
Right. That's not a good look for Clemson. And look, honestly, like better late than never, I suppose. Reclaiming your own name. What a novel concept. So Travis Etienne, not related to Devon Etienne of the Miami Dolphins, but now we have two Etiennes in the league, not spelled the same way. Just making sure everybody was updated that when you're talking about the New Orleans running back, you hear somebody says Travis Etienne. Oh, he must be confusing him with Devon Etienne. No, that's how his name is pronounced. And remember, pronounce your name the way you want it pronounced. Maybe you've seen these glass floors they're using in the Big Ten tournament. LED, giving stats, putting ads on there. This seems like it's the future, right? And this was kind of the thing that came about during the NBA in-season tournament. Like, all right, we're going to make it look like a video game here. Maybe we make some money putting ads on the floor. And it certainly looks a lot different. It gets you to stop. You're flipping around like, wait, what's that? Why is there a gray floor? Oh, yeah, it's a glass floor. They use this here in the Big Ten. Yes, I just used the past tense there. The conference is actually switching back to hardwood for the men's and women's tournaments for the final 2 days. The reason, turns out the glass floor was slippery. Okay, a few thoughts here. One, You mean to tell me that there's actually an NCAA organization that took players' safety into consideration? You're kidding me. I don't think those glass courts came for free. Maybe they did. It's a company out of Germany, by the way. Maybe they said, here, use this, and maybe we'll get other conferences to buy. Well, that's about as bad as you could get, right? If that's the case, like, oh, yeah, we don't want to buy that if everybody's going to be slipping here and twisting an ankle. If you're wondering, oh, well, that must just be the ice surface underneath coming. No, that's Kansas City. Let's see. No, there's no hockey team in Kansas City. Now, if you were at the Blue Cross Arena Saturday for the Section 5 championships, it started out great. And I think having the bigger schools in the morning, that's the way to do it, but I digress. By the end of the day Saturday, and it got up to 70. Today it's not looking like 70. With the ice underneath, that was a long day, and it started to show on the court. And there were a couple kids that wiped out. I'm like, what are they going to do? And literally it got to a point where they had the plays going on at one end, and they had somebody mopping at the other end. And they didn't have enough towels. They didn't have enough everything. So, like, hopefully that's a lesson learned for Section 5. But apparently, like, this wasn't anything hockey-related or moisture-related. Just don't play on glass. What a novel concept. And, look, again, another old man at clouds. I like my basketball played on hardwood. Yeah, that's good. Good that we'll have that. Gus Johnson. I love Gus. And this is the time of year where I kind of miss Gus. He took the paycheck, can't fault him. It was usually, CBS, and you're getting a big upset, and you would get his big call. Oh, that's what you wanted. And then he goes over to Fox, does the World Cup, and kind of like a forgotten guy when it comes to college announcing. Well, he's got a take. He says that not only can the UConn women win the NCAA tournament, they could win the WNBA title. Like this year. Gus. Can we stop with this take? This is just another variation of the bad take that, hey, Alabama football, the best team in college football, can they be better than the worst team in the NFL, the New York Jets? Reaction at 866-4326. No, those are grown men, the New York Jets, the professionals. They would obliterate whoever's on the college field. So why would this be any different? I guess maybe shame on me. Like, that's a clickbaity take. I'm sorry on that. We've got the Amherst tonight, and boy, do they need a win. Now, they're still in a position for the playoffs. They still have games in hand, but it's getting to the time where you just can't fart around anymore. So the Marlies, can the Amherst this weekend grab 3 of 4 points against said Marlies? And if you're paying close attention, if things kind of finish up this way, this would be the 4-5 matchup, which is not ideal, the play-in round. And when you get done with the play-in round, then you would have to go and play Laval. So it's a team that the Amherst know very, very well. So Don and Andrew will be by tonight, beginning at 7 o'clock with a call here on WGR Rochester. Sabres lose last night. Now, they're still in first place, but a little bit of the margin there as Tampa's still with the game in hand. But still, you get that head-to-head matchup on, I think they call it Dingus Day in Buffalo, whatever that is, the Monday after. Look, I'm getting to know these things as our stations have kind of, become one here. Yeah, that's the one thing here in Rochester. I'm like, that they don't know plates. I don't know and have no interest in learning about Dingus Day. There you go. Sabres hockey tomorrow. They're taking on the Leafs. We will have that for you. Right here, actually, what time is the Amherst game tomorrow?
4.
4, so we will...
Maybe 3.
Yeah, so I think, your best bet for that tomorrow is going to be on CMF. Quick Sabre take, because you want to say, hey, Kevin Adams doesn't know what he's doing. If there is a guy that epitomizes a fourth liner and that Sabre fans love, that's Beck Malenstein. And here in Rochester, I remember this guy as a Hershey Bear. Didn't like him then. Probably because he was really, really good. And that was a Washington team at the time that hey, they were still kind of a contender and not everybody could kind of come up, but he's somebody that played the game just a little bit differently. And when the Sabres acquired him, he's still young at the time. He's still 26. So where we want to dump on Kevin Adams and give Yarmo all this credit, we have to recognize some of the guys that actually came in here thanks to Kevin Adams. And I bring it up, it's a good time for Malenstein. First, the game against San Jose, like what on earth? He's like, that breakaway, you could say just that's terrible defense by the Sharks. I'll hear that. Malenstein scoring on a breakaway, which should have been saved, but he put it in. But last night's pass, setting up the Sabres' only goal, and I think it's just a take that sometimes we want to dump on Kevin Adams. We love dumping on Doug Whaley. But Doug Whaley is the guy who found Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde. It wasn't Sean McDermott. It was Whaley. It said, these are the guys. Think about that. Like, Whaley never even got to see him actually on the field together here at the time. He was gone by the time that came around. So it's a thankless job, kind of being a GM. It really is. Where sometimes your efforts, because you have to wait, but you run out of time. Do I have any empathy for Kevin Adams? The answer is no. 5 years, a long time. But this is one of the moves he made that certainly is paying off. College basketball talk coming your way next, as we will talk to Mike Waters with the Syracuse Post-Standard. And then last call for you at 866-4326. My name is Gene Battaglia here on WGR Rochester.
WGR Rochester Sports Update.
Hockey tonight in the Flower City is the Amerks. They need a win. Coming into tonight, they've dropped 9 in a row. Toronto, the opponent. Head coach Mike Leone on the opponent.
They're well coached. Groots does a really good job. They defend really well. They protect the middle of the ice really well. And then, they got a lot of dangerous players, veteran players in this league that have played a long time that know how to play in this league. They do a really good job of just having numbers back, not giving anything off the rush.
Don Stevens, Andrew Mossbergs will have your call tonight beginning at 7 here on WGR Rochester. Sabres tomorrow taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Randy Mearns makes his debut as Nighthawks head coach. Rochester Sunday playing at Las Vegas. College basketball, St. Bonaventure Dayton just underway. It's the quarterfinals of the Atlantic 10 tournament. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, WGR Rochester.
Rochester's home for live sports and the best sports talk anywhere. The Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia, 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR, Rochester.
If you're a Syracuse fan, Syracuse alum, lots of change. A new chancellor, a new athletic director, and soon you'll have a new head coach for the men's basketball program as covering the team for many years at a high level. Mike Waters, Syracuse Post-Standard, good enough to give us some time here today. And Mike, has there been a bigger time ever for change at Syracuse University? Mike, how are you this afternoon?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on. And in answer to your question, no, there's there's nothing to even compare to this in Syracuse history. And man, I dare say I don't know if another university has gone through change like this in such short order. With last week the chancellor was introduced, the new chancellor, the new AD's been hired, the basketball coach is fired, and in a few weeks we'll have a new basketball coach. It's been crazy around here.
Yeah, let's start with the new AD. So John Wildhack announcing his retirement. You heard the first report of, back in February. Oh, he's here till July 1st. Like, how's this going to line up? Oh, no, they fast-tracked everything here. So we learn about Brian Blair, the new athletic director. Mike, what does Brian Blair here bring to Syracuse?
If you look at his resume, he checks a lot of boxes off. Even though he's only like 40 years old, he's been the AD at the University of Toledo now for about the last 4 or 5 years, and had a lot of success there at a school in the Mid-American Conference that plays both football and basketball. The basketball program's been successful. The football program's been successful. And the thing that sticks out to me is people who know him, and even on the school's website, this is what they tout about him, is that he's been a revenue generator. That in this era of NIL and everything, and having to fund your programs and also pay players, that he's been really good at that, again, making sure that his athletic programs have the proper financial backing. I think that's critical to your success these days in college athletics. And really, it's been where Syracuse has been, lagging behind, especially in the ACC and men's basketball compared to some of its conference brethren. Syracuse just wasn't ready for this 3 years ago. So I think Brian Blair is a good choice in that respect. And then, he's got experience. He's been at other schools as well, Washington State when it was still a Pac-12 member, Rice University. So he's got experience at a private school. I think that's important too. South Carolina. The other thing too, I kind of like about him, I don't know how much it matters really, but he played football at Wofford when obviously not a Power 5 school, but still, he's a former athlete. So I think, and the fact that he's still relatively young for this position, I think he's going to have a connection to the student athletes at Syracuse, and he's going to understand what they're going through. So I think it's a really interesting hire, and we'll just kind of have to see how it goes.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that they went outside the family, thinking of something different. But the thing I want to ask you about is the NIL, because you heard Boeheim kind of take a little swipe there, or just kind of pointing out that there are other programs, and that is true. Rochester and Syracuse are similar in many ways, Mike. We're not emerging markets. There aren't these big dollars there were, say, 50 years ago as compared to other markets. But is there still things you can tap out, other ways here? Because I'm just wondering, even if somebody that has this great resume, like I use the cheesy analogy, is there still more juice we could squeeze here, Mike?
It's a challenge, and you're correct to point out, the market there. I mean, Kodak, Carrier, where are they now, right? It's like, and not just the corporation not being the same, but the number of people in our area that were employed by those businesses that, no longer have that job there. Maybe they no longer even live here. You think about the financial boost that the University of Arkansas's athletic programs just got from Tyson Foods. Your frozen chicken nugget people, right? That's because the founder of Tyson Foods, or the CEO of it, is a University of Arkansas grad. Does Syracuse have somebody of that magnitude who is still lives in the area or really cares? I don't know. It is a challenge. Syracuse is different than a lot of its competition out there. It's not a state school. Its graduates don't necessarily come. A large majority of them don't come from this area. They don't stay in this area the way they do at places like North Carolina, Kentucky, Alabama, Tennessee, Kansas, all those state schools, and you think about their alums. But I think that Syracuse can do better than it has. I don't know that the school's done that great a job really addressing NIL and really explaining to alumni and boosters, how their money can help and what it's going to go towards. Let's face it, Syracuse really didn't jump on the NIL bandwagon initially. In fact, they practically resisted it, where you knew what other schools were going to do, and Syracuse was like, we're playing, but we've got guardrails, and NIL is supposed to be just like the player getting money from his jersey at the student store, or maybe one ad from a local car dealership. Is like, no. Schools were lining up 3-4 years ago to pay players, and Syracuse was resisting that and acting like that's not where it was going to go. So they fell way behind early. So maybe there is still room to play a little catch up here, and that's exactly what they're having to do right now. They're playing catch up.
Yeah, I mean, and it's so relationship driven, because I think, Mike, if you found, I don't know, just a few whales, so to speak, guys that, all right, I'm going to head this up now with new leadership here, and I think of somebody like Adam Weitzman, and I don't know how that kind of went sideways, and I don't necessarily need Tom Brady sitting courtside, but it's somebody like that. You just need a few guys like that to kind of turn this around, and I guess my question is, well, it's kind of a mixed bag, right? The John Wildhack era. It's great that when you look back at the Wildhack era, they, men's soccer won a national championship, and you look at all the dome renovations. But overall, how would you kind of evaluate the job that John Wildhack did in his tenure?
I think, like you were saying, good in some respects, maybe fell a little short in some others. Like the NIL question is one that he definitely didn't answer correctly right away, and he just didn't. And I remember the press conference up at the football facility when it was a spring press conference, and the NIL issue came up, and that they were going to do it the right way. And I'm like, well, the right way ain't going to win any games. And sure enough, it just wasn't there. And maybe it was honorable to think that you were going to play by the rules, but when you just knew that other schools in the country had already decided those rules don't apply, and that they never were going to, so yeah, not great in that respect. But Fran Brown's looking like a decent hire. I don't know, maybe sometimes athletic directors get credit for hires, and then they get knocked for ones that don't go well. But, almost every hire looks good when you start. And sometimes the ones that don't look good are the ones that turn out great. So I don't know if I'm going to judge John Wildhack on just who he hired and fired. I don't think he did a great job addressing the situation involving Quentin Hillsman, the women's basketball coach. That was a slow response. And I still don't think it was a good move when you did remove Quentin Hillsman that you had one of his assistants as an interim. You can't do that, not with the allegations. If those allegations, you believe them enough to get rid of Quentin Hillsman, the whole staff had to go. So, that's not a great move. I don't know if it matters in the grand scheme of things on how, he ran an athletic department, but little things like that bother me. The big thing is, he did do a great job. The renovating of the dome was necessary. There's been other facilities upgrades that were necessary. You got a national title in men's soccer. It looks like men's and women's lacrosse are in good shape. When you moved on from John Desko and you moved Gary Gate from the women's program to the men's, and then, now you've got Reggie Thorpe leading the women. They all look like, those programs are in good shape. But I don't know. Mixed bag. I mean, not an A, not an F.
Yeah.
Probably somewhere in the B range, B minus maybe. I don't know how good. I guess it depends on how tough a grader you are, Gene.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give him a B. It's a Friday. I'm in a good mood here, Mike. Mike Waters said
it's a Friday.
Yeah, it's a Friday. Syracuse Post Standard, good enough where I know your phone. You're going to be kind of, your sources and everything else. We'll get to the head coaching. Well, maybe let's start this way. Are we Siena fans this tournament, Mike?
Why not? Absolutely. Jerry McNamara, it's a Syracuse legend. Has done a great job at Siena. He's got the Saints back into the NCAA tournament. Of course. I mean, if you need a team to cheer for and you're a Syracuse fan, you might as well cheer for the Saints.
Is he ready for that kind of jump? He's certainly going to be a candidate, and I think Syracuse would be doing themselves no favors if they didn't talk to him, Mike.
You have to, and that's the thing, especially with a new AD. This athletic director doesn't know Jerry McNamara, so I think he's going to have to sit down and really talk to all of them. And when you talk about many of the names that we've already heard, the fact that you have this other change taking place at the athletic director level, I think really you're going to see Brian Blair investigate, and interview all these guys. He kind of comes, in a way, it's good. He comes into this with a completely blank slate. If he decides to hire Jerry McNamara, it's not because he's known him for 10 years and was here, was here as an undergrad 20 years ago, and just has this fondness for Jerry the way a lot of fans do. He's not going to approach it like a fan or even an alum. You give Jerry a fair shake, but you're going to sit down and interview him, and he's going to have to impress you. Same as, some of these other names. I mean, it's funny. A lot of people ask me the question you just did about Jerry. Is he ready? He's only been at Siena 2 years. And they don't ask me that same question about one of the other names that's most prominently mentioned for the job, and that's Brian Hodgson.
Yeah. Well, I was going to, good to go there
they
next.
Don't ask me that.
So,
they assume he's ready. I'm like, wait, he's been a head coach for 3 years. One more year than Jerry, granted 2 different schools, and he's been successful at both. But here's the thing you have to remember about both Brian Hodgson and Jerry. They've done well in turning around Jerry sort of turned around Siena. Let's face it, they won 4 games of the year before Jerry got there. So there was some, work to be done. But Siena's been good before. In fact, they were good 3-4 years ago. They had one brutal year. And that's a well-funded program by Metro Atlantic Conference standards. Siena's always up there. So he's got a good job. Jerry was smart. He went and got a job where I think he knew he had a chance to win. Same with Brian Johnson. You go to Arkansas State, it's in a lower-level league, but it's one of the few schools that really do well there. And it's like Arkansas State and Troy are good, so he had 2 good years. Then he takes the South Florida job, and it's kind of been a good year to be at South Florida in the American Conference, because that's a league that usually you think of Memphis, Wichita State, Alabama, Birmingham. Memphis is having a terrible year under Penny Hardaway this year.
Yeah.
Wichita State's in a little bit of a rebuild. They lost a lot of guys off last year's team, and Alabama Birmingham's not. It's been a great year to have a good year in the American Athletic Conference if you're Brian Hodgson and the South Florida Bulls. So, I guess what I'm saying is it's like I look at these quote-unquote turnarounds for both Brian Hodgson and Jerry McNamara, like, yeah, that's all well and good. I want to know more.
Yeah.
I want to know more than just that, because that alone is not going to convince me for either guy.
Yeah, I would hope that they would talk to, and I'm sure they will. Hodgson, by the way, Fredonia grad, another guy with New York State roots, Jamestown, all that. Are you hearing anybody else, Mike, or anybody else that you might not be hearing be like that guy would make sense, whether that's from the outside or maybe internally?
I'm not hearing anybody personally where I can say here on your show, like, oh yeah, watch out this name because somebody told me this. Other than that, I'm reading the same names that you are, but I don't know if there's a lot of validity to any of them yet. And the fact that Brian Blair just got the job, I think we can kind of throw out, or just take that paper full of names, crumble it up, throw it in the wastebasket, and now with Brian Blair in there, kind of wait and see. If we might need to develop a new list. It probably still starts with Brian Hodgson and Jerry McNamara, but we'll have to see. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of agents for coaches who have been texting and calling Brian Blair over the last 24 to 48 hours. Hey, heard you just got a new job. Have I got a guy for you? You got to hire. But think about my guy, and who knows who Brian Blair has already kind of maybe had on a list in case he needed a guy at Toledo, or maybe there was a guy he had on his list at Toledo 4 years ago who since then has gone on to a different school, made that step up at another school now. And, Brian Blair's looking at him going, hey, man, I was thinking about him at Toledo 4 years ago. Now he'd be perfect at Syracuse. So, we're going to have to wait and see. But, there's some interesting names. One name's off the list, it looks like. Josh Schertz of St. Louis came out earlier today or last night that he signed an extension. So he's probably locked up at St. Louis now. So that's a big name that was going to be at the top of the coaching carousel this spring that might be off the market.
Yeah, St. Louis advancing today. Bonaventure, by the way, tied with Dayton 13-13 midway through the first in the A-10 quarterfinal. Our guest Mike Waters, Syracuse Post-Standard, talking about where do we go here with Syracuse basketball, Syracuse athletics. The question I'm going to ask you, Mike, it has to come with a big, huge disclaimer, right? Really, it's hard to ask, but I have to ask it. What do we expect from the team next season in terms of the roster? Now, we don't know the head coach. The portal's still coming up, and you don't know who could be coming in or who could be going out, but do we have any sense of where we're at least starting from here in terms of the roster and how it'll shape up next season?
We don't have any idea at this point. And reading an article about a week ago, I saw that in recent years with coaching changes because of the transfer portal and also with, NIL and everything affecting the game in terms of just increasing player movement, Power 5 schools undergoing coaching changes saw an average of 2 players retained per roster. So that's not a lot. And some of those guys aren't stars. And some of those guys are guys, in the end of the bench, they're subs or whoever. And, so don't expect a lot of players that were playing for Syracuse this year to be back.
Wow.
And, when you look at it, obviously 4 guys are out of, eligibility, so they're gone. And it could depend, too, on, who's hired as coach. If a few of these guys were around and maybe have a relationship with a Jerry McNamara, maybe they're more inclined to stay. But, if it's a different hire and none of, these guys don't really know that next guy or, the other thing, too, is, when the portal officially opens the day after the national championship game, that's the official opening. Believe me, especially with the Syracuse players, with the coaching staff fired, and I've actually been checking on this. I don't know at this time of year if this holds, but usually if your coach leaves the program, you're automatically allowed to enter the portal right away. So Syracuse players might be able to do that now for like a 30-day window, but I don't know if it applies to this time of year. Some of this stuff is so new to us. But regardless, the portal opens in about 3 weeks. But in that meantime, these players, their agents, they're going to talk to other coaches. Coaches are going to call and say, hey, is your player going to enter the portal? Yeah, he is. Well, we'd be really interested. A player could basically have his mind made up before the portal officially opens. And he puts his name in on Tuesday, March or April 7th, and he could be announcing his transfer the next day. It's sort of like that legal tampering in the NFL or whatever it is, the trading stuff that happens before the official trading period opens. It's going to be just like that for the next 3 or 4 weeks in college basketball.
That's my favorite oxymoron, legal tampering.
Right.
Nothing beats that.
Jumbo shrimp.
Yes, exactly. Well, that too. Mike Waters, Syracuse Post-Standard. Mike, as we're going to be, kind of hungry for more info here as this process of a new head coach coming in here, tell everybody what they can expect coming up, Syracuse.com, and where they can follow your work here.
Well, you can follow the work on Syracuse.com. You can follow me at Mike Waters, SYR, on Twitter or X, whatever they're calling it these days. I would say go there, go to Syracuse.com now. It's not a story I wrote, but my colleague Chris Carlson got an interview with Brian Blair today and already has one story up on our website talking about the importance of the basketball hire. So, that's a good one that's out there right now. And we'll have more coverage coming up, too. We are going to have some Jerry McNamara interviews coming up. My other colleague, Donna DeTota, is going to be over in the Albany area out at Loudonville with the Siena Saints at their NCAA watch party. So that'll be big.
Fun,
yeah, I'll be having more, fallout of the coaching search. That's kind of what my, duties have been here for the past few days and will continue to be, talking to, potential coaching candidates, talking to their agents, kind of seeing where things are going. Of course, that's all up in the air right now. And we'll follow, what some of the players are thinking. Like I said, some of these guys are going to hear from other schools unofficially, back channel stuff. And knowing some of the player agents, I'll be in touch with them. So we'll be watching some of that stuff too. But there's been a lot of coverage over the past couple of days. So once you go there and see that story about Brian Blair, there might be a few other stories on there that people will have interest in. So, yeah, there's no shortage of stories at Syracuse.com these days, Gene.
Mike, thanks for the time. Let's do this again soon. Appreciate it so much.
Sounds great. Talk to you soon.
Thanks. Mike Waters, Syracuse Post-Standard. As Syracuse, two names he knows on the list, G-Mac and Brian Hodgson. Final thought coming up next year. My name is Gene Battaglia at WGR Rochester.
Straight up with no chaser. You're in the Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR, Rochester.
Great talking to Mike Waters, Syracuse Post-Standard last hour.
It was really great. You did something that I couldn't do in that moment, but I've got to do
What?
it now.
What?
I've got to do it now.
What did I do?
Juice. When Chris and I broke up, the Juice was there for me every night. It's like he's not really the Juice anymore. We gotta get you dressed, Juice. Juice, a will? Juice. Come on, Juice. Juice, it's AC. Juice! AC's here! Juice, I heard Juice. It's on every channel. You know I feel the same, Juice. You're gonna tell them yourself, Juice. Juice, your whole family's here, Juice. She's on the house phone waiting to talk to you, Juice. Juice. Okay, Juice? Okay, Juice, we're good to go. You're home, Juice. You know Uncle Juice, and your Uncle Juice is a good man. He's never gonna stop being the Juice. It could explain a lot, Juice. Just hear him out, Juice. He's right, Juice. Listen, Juice. Hey, Juice, this is your life. Juice, please, Juice. Juice, we need an answer.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, yes, and that carries over to Sports Bar 2.0. And I did say in that interview, is the juice worth the squeeze? And it's good that you didn't interrupt, and I would have to explain that to Mike Waters. If you're new to the show, that is every instance of David Schwimmer playing the role of Robert Kardashian saying the word juice. I just picture the programmer out in Buffalo listening to the show like, what is this show
What
in
is
Rochester?
going on in here?
What is this? We should not have the WGR name. That is juvenile. Monday, we will react to the brackets. I hope Sienna is out in Buffalo. That'll be fun if that is the case. Buffalo hosting rounds 1 and 2 Thursday and Friday next week. Emmerich hockey tonight here on WGR Rochester. Boy, these boys need a win. As Emmerichs are taking on Toronto. Don and Andrew will have the call beginning at 7 o'clock tonight, and then they're up in Toronto tomorrow for the back end of the Home and Home. If it's any of today's award-winning show, you can download it on the Odyssey app and listen back in the Rewind feature anytime up to 72 hours. Mike Schopp is actually off today, so it is the Bulldog and his friends coming up next. My name is Gene Battaglia right here on WGR Rochester. Have a great weekend.